Hi everyone, I'm Eric.
And I'm Christopher.
And we're Grow For Me Gardening. Today is part 2 of our July garden tour.
Welcome everyone to our garden here in zones 5B/68 in upstate New York. This is part 2 of our July garden tour after an amazing weekend with a photo shoot and our open days garden tour. The garden's looking amazing. So we thought, what better time to get out here and show you what the garden is looking like. So we're continuing on from part 1. We'll put that link in the description below. But here we are on the west side of the house at the Jane Magnolia. This has grown incredibly well since we didn't plant it. This is one of the only things in the front of our house that's original to the landscape package that inspired us to start gardening. It's gotten quite wide, so there is a bit of a brutal pruning coming for this.
Yeah, it's got to. The last few times I've mowed around it, it's definitely been an issue.
It's a little hefty at the base, but there's some beautiful trunks on the inside that we're going to encourage up, because if it goes up and out, that's great. As long as we can get underneath it, we're fine. So we'll continue on here, again focusing a bit on evergreens and how important they are for transitions and texture, even in the summer when it's not just about your winter interest. So winter gem boxwoods, this actually mirrors one across the way on the other side of the driveway, and we're repeating the blue artist floss flower here at the corner, going into our favorite perennial, the Walker's Low catmint, and that's what we underplant quite a bit of roses with. But here in particular, it's Gabriel Oak from David Austin. At this time of year, we're seeing all that new growth come up. We see all these lovely red growth tips and beautiful hot pink, beautiful fragrance in this rose.
Very fragrant. I get out of the car and I can smell it.
Always.
It's really nice. And this already had its first flush back in June. So look how many buds are coming up for its second flush.
Tons of buds right now. Again, we do love a repetition moment. That's what gives you that cohesion, is Firelight Tidbit putting on its nice little smaller panicles. This was always Eric's favorite hydrangea until Invincibelle Sublime came into his life.
But I still say it's my favorite panicle.
There you go. We did repeat the green wall on this side, and you can see how nicely this is going to mimic the other side. This will just give us a little bit of a bulky wall effect that continues the fence line. I'm not sure what's going to go where Eric is standing. At some point, we'll probably extend it a little bit, but that's way in the future. A new addition, actually a couple new additions right here. This is just an English lavender that Eric picked up because we had a hole. And before the garden tour, Eric said, no, we need something right here. So this is kind of a new, fresh English lavender. It smells so good.
It does smell so good.
My favorite ornamental grass is Adagio miscanthus sinensis. The reason I like it, it does have a little white stripe through the center of the very thin green leaf, and it stays about 3 by 3. We have one in the back. I fell in love with it. We saw another one, and what better place to have this 3 by 3 grass with very champagne iridescent fronds. It's going to glow, especially in fall, next to the dark pink on the Firelight Tidbit. Behind that is a peony, long gone over. And here is a new for 2025 salvia called Unplugged White. This is not a bright, intense white. It's almost got a sagey silver undertone, even in the calyx, like the top of the stem where the flowers pop out. It does have that true color. This in any kind of cooling flower mix, I could see this with tons of colors. Could you imagine this with like a bubble gum?
It would be really interesting. It does have that like gray neutral to it that some container arrangements just calls for.
This is a really nice one. This is my baby. And when I say that, it's because we bought this 3-foot tall weeping white spruce. And my goal was to not have...
It's a Norway spruce.
No, weeping Norway spruce. See, I'm apparently not a good parent. My baby here. We bought this 3-foot tall little thing, and I made it my goal to not have a big snuffleupagus giant chunk of evergreen. I wanted to see how tall I could get this. And every couple years, it sends out something really vertical. So I didn't even have to stake that top new growth. And that's actually the new growth just from this year. So I'm going to continue staking it, let it weep out and do its thing. but try to keep it nice and tall. My goal is 12 feet, and then we'll see what we're going to do. Who knows? But in the meantime, I love it. Down here is potentially going to become one of my favorite hydrangeas. This is Let's Dance Can Do. These did die back to the ground. This is their first full season. They are an incredibly fast re-blooming hydrangea. They bloom all the way up the stems. In this case, you can see they're very pink. We recently found out that our water is actually slightly alkaline. So we definitely, if we want to see a purple in one of these big leaf hydrangeas or a blue in them, we are going to have to do a bunch of acidifier. But they're growing nicely, they're starting to shape themselves out, and hopefully they're going to turn into one nice mass over the years. Here's a fun way of exploring layers. A river birch. This is Shiloh Splash with an intense yellow variegation. Kind of grows as a large shrub / small tree. But how about layering a tree with a hydrangea? This is Limelight Prime. Really strong stems. Definitely not going to see any flopping from this. The blooms are still to come. But I like the way that this almost rests on top of it. It's a really nice combo. Below that is a Yuki Snowflake Deutzia. It's already done its lovely white flowers in spring. Now it just gives you almost a ferny appearance, which I like. And again, evergreen. This is a Sprinter boxwood, planted as the tiniest little court a few years ago. Now it's starting to look like an actual little plant, giving us a little transition into the next area. More Fall in Love Sweetly anemone like we have over on our east border. We're going to let this fill in nicely here. Some more catmint here, which has grown back. I think this might be the biggest of all our catmint that was cut back 5 weeks ago. And this is how much it's flushed back. A Hollywood juniper is going to give us a nice, irregular, big, tufty green. This will look beautiful in winter because this will really not be doing too much. This is a white pillar, Rose of Sharon, doing the pillar thing.
It's supposed to get about 12 feet tall, right? And not get much wider than that.
No, this will be really nice. That's our office. So this is going to be a little bit of a privacy without just a big block up against the window. Before I talk about this friend, we'll mention that we do have another peony in here, Going Bananas Daylily. It's been blooming a while.
It really
I'm impressed about this one. There's, I think, 4 or 5 of them in this little spot. And this here is the Wabi Sabi Japanese Maple. It's a weeper. It has very finely cut leaves. I love it. I can't wait to see the fall color on this. But this whole area, it's a lot of texture. You see, the evergreen texture, the big peony texture, strappy foliage, upright, evergreen, and then weeping cut leaf. And then across our path, where these are actually just bluestone chunks that we got. Some of these came from the house Eric grew up in before his parents moved. They just had these little chunks of bluestone. So we carved out a little hole and just sunk them in there. There's no magic to it. It's just bluestone sunk in the ground. This is the Vanderwolf pine. The huggable pine, you can just run right up into it. I don't find myself getting poked by it. It has a nice variegation to it. It's got the green on one side, silver on the other. Nice open habit. It's not like the Alberta spruce or anything really tight. It's just kind of wafty. I love this one.
It's got a great shape. It's really matured very nicely. This was planted in 2019, I'd say, as a 5-gallon. On our square obelisk trellis here is Claire Austin. Claire Austin is a rescue rose. We found her at the end of the season maybe 2 years ago in a clearance bin, barely alive. She's been planted here and recovering ever since. So I think this is her final year of recovery. I think next year is the year we see Claire Austin thrive. What do you think?
I think it's going to be her year.
Thinking that this would be a little more shaded than it is, there is a Miss America hosta, right? That's Miss America.
Love it.
There is a new for 2025 Coral Bell, which the name is, of course, escaping me because they always do. Do you happen to remember, Christopher?
That is dressed up prom gown.
That's prom gown or prom dress.
Prom dress.
And then there's another Virginia. It's Miss Piggy.
Yep.
And I love beech trees so much. This is a Dawick purple beech. It is an obelisk beech. It's been planted here again to help fill that vertical space of the large mass of siding that we have. And I absolutely love the dark color. It's dark, dark, dark green right now with a tinge of purple, but in the spring, that fresh growth comes out like a true gorgeous dark purple. Underneath here is Besto Pesto Mugo Pine. This is almost the mature size of it, just planted this spring. It's an Isley introduction. It seems pretty happy there, but it's a transition evergreen into this stand of Baptisia. This is double deluxe blue berry soda pop.
Blue bubbly.
Blue bubbly. And that's helping to cover up the egress window right there. And to bring a pop of chartreuse, we decided to plant this Ember Waves Arborvitae. From my understanding, when I did my little research on it, only the new growth was supposed to be gold. So I thought, oh, we'll see gold in the spring. That is not the case. This is constantly gold, and I love that it's constantly gold.
It's beautiful.
It brings that much-needed pop on the west side of our garden. Underplanted with purple Chablis lamium, another Deutzia repeated here, before we get to our traditional French lilac. To my right, let's just pop over this way quick. On our fence, on this triple trellis, again, these are just individual trellises that we've zip tied together. We've connected them to the fence with a vinyl fence hook. This is Woolerton Old Hall. This is a climbing rose from David Austin Roses, planted 2 years ago. I'm in love with the flower, the shape of these flowers. Right now they have a little botrytis, right? That's what it's called. Yep. When the blooms get wet and they get that little bit of pink on them. The weather's just been wild, but this is the first time I've really seen it on this rose.
Same.
And underplanted with Supertunia Vivid Hoopla Orchid, Supertunia Mini Vista Plum Vein, Newly Noir Coleus, and Silver Lining Artemisia. In there you can see a little Japanese painted fern.
I like that. It's a little bonus texture moment.
It's cute, and I think that's Hudson Bay Hosta back
Hudson Bay Hosta.
And a Sprinter Boxwood with a nice emerald green arborvitae that starts up the limelight hedge. But I'm going to pop back over here. I just don't want to walk past and then have to go back. You know what I'm doing. Neptune catmint. This is another type of catmint. Has a little more of a chartreusey foliage, which brings a bright pop over here. Embers something. It's a dark sedum.
Night embers, if I'm not mistaken.
Sedums. And then there's another campfire marshmallow Bidens with a C of Supertunia Saffron Finch. That brings us to our ellipsis sculpture. This ellipsis sculpture I bought on Grandin Road. I don't think they make it anymore. They might, but I got it for Christopher as an anniversary gift. But another transition evergreen. This is Blue Feathers. Is a juniper, right?
It's a Hinoki cypress.
I feel like we went back and forth on that for a little bit.
Yeah, we couldn't remember.
And so now I'm misremembering it. And in front of that is new for 2025, Totally Stoked Riptide Asters. They've really been blooming their heads off since we planted them at the beginning of June. I will say they have constantly been in flower.
They get 36 inches wide each.
That's why they're so far apart. But look at the pollinators in them.
Oh yeah, that bee is going to town.
Really happy.
Love it.
Another Wine and Roses Weigela back there to bring some dark foliage, some nice weight, surrounded by some Ito peonies. A new for 2025 is Bobblehead Allium, and the foliage has a curl to it. I don't know if you noticed, but it's like a curly foliage, which is really interesting.
It's so nice.
It's not in bloom right now, obviously, but it is supposed to be larger than Serendipity, and the flowers are a much more muted lavender.
Yeah, it's going to look, honestly, it's going to look almost like soap bubbles.
Yes. Behind that, all that new growth coming up on our beast of a trio of roses is Emily Bronte. Emily Bronte gets enormous for us. We cut her way back after her first flush. You can see there is one flower back there looking very white. I think it looks so white because of the heat that we've been having. Morning Light Miscanthus brings that grassy texture. Down here in front, Tough Stuff Top Fun Hydrangea. We have a hedge of this in the back garden. I'm really excited to see how this hydrangea does for us. We love the original Tough Stuff, and so they keep improving it. There's a bunch of different versions of it in a series. This is the newest one, Tough Stuff Top Fun. Planted bare root this spring, double pink Ringo rose right here on the edge. They stay very tiny. I think next year, when they grow a little bit more, this will kind of just be a small mass of rose. This gorgeous tall structure right here is a Parkland pillar birch. We chose this because it stays very narrow, and we wanted something to soften the corner of the home, but also provide some privacy during the summer months. Underplanted with a red twig dogwood. This is doing very well this year. I can't wait to use the twigs in holiday container decoration. That's what we're growing it for. So every year it's going to get cut back because we're going to be using those twigs. A trio of pufferfish hydrangeas. Some of them have some blooms coming, some of them don't. These were just planted last fall. These new improved hydrangeas that Proven Winners is creating are truly astounding, but sometimes it takes the younger shrubs a little bit more time to get established to really perform like they're supposed to perform. And I love this nice, cute little tree. This is Carolina Sweetheart Redbud. It has put out a lot of new growth recently. The new growth comes out dark purple, and then it's going to fade to a variegation. This variegation here, a little bit burned in that heat dome that we had, but it's like a combination of cream, pink, and green. And as this matures, it's going to become more resilient to the heat, more resilient to the sun, and it's just going to flourish.
Big time.
Coming under here, moving into our shade area that heads up to the terrace, we cap it off with a repetition of Walker's Low Catmint, a green velvet boxwood, our little stone path to our hose. This is a VEGO retractable hose. Spilled wine Weigela, more morning light miscanthus, and look at these lavender mist meadow rue. I mean, if you could get in on these blooms, they are just sweet as can be, covered in teeny tiny little pollinators, absolutely adorable. They are staked. If we didn't stake these, they would definitely flop over in the incredible winds and storms that we've had. So we used the Jardin stake. This is a taller version of the one that we mentioned in the first video. A Jardin stake, you can see it's tied very loosely so that it has give. You know, when the wind blows, it definitely has some give so it doesn't snap. This right here, believe it or not, is a perennial. This dies to the ground every year. This is Sun King Aurelia. It is obviously very happy in this spot. It will eventually send out some flowers at the end of the season, but it's not grown for its flowers. It is grown for its foliage, this bright golden chartreuse. The more sun it gets, the yellower it is going to be. So obviously it gets some nice sun at this point in time. Underplanted, well, it was underplanted with something that didn't make it because obviously it's been shrouded out. But there are some geraniums here. These are purple geraniums that I cut back to the ground, as well as some Brunnera that was also cut back to the ground. So this is all fresh growth within the last few weeks, and I think it looks really nice and tidy to have that fresh growth.
I'm glad we made the determination. We did an experiment with Brunnera. Some we cut the blooms off in spring, some we cut to the ground, and some we kind of left to its own devices. And the best looking plants were the ones that were cut to the ground after blooming.
And I'm not sure of the variety of this one, but it has reseeded itself here along the edge, and I'm totally fine with that. Happy to leave those there.
A fun project earlier this year was planting the Malvern Hills Rambling Rose from David Austin Roses here in what looks like the rocks. We actually pulled all the rocks away, created sort of a dirt well. How would you describe it?
Well, yeah, we took a pot and we cut the bottom off of it and we just kind of filled it with goodies for the rose.
Right. So it's almost like this is only about a ½ inch deep here before there's soil, where everything else is 3 inches deep. A little confusing to explain.
We did a whole video about it.
Yes. But it's blooming and it's growing, and it is a rambler, but it's a more compact or a columnar rambler. So we're going to bring it straight up and go out over time. Over here in the 2x8 elevated bed from Gardener's Supply, we have potatoes that are very close to being harvested. And one of the ways you know your potatoes are ready is when they start to not look so great on the top.
When they look terrible.
So not so hot there. We also have a rosemary that I grew from seed, and we have a weed in there too. This is celery that's probably getting close to being cut on, a string bean, and this is a cypress vine because we just wanted to fill up the arches. We added in these extenders to give an extra foot height to the 2x8 arch, which I really like. It really lifts the whole area. Over here is Jackby Little Pumpkin. I also started from seed. They get really little, like 3-inch diameter pumpkins. I'm trying to get them to go up, but they just keep getting bulky, and I'm just like, go up, please.
I keep tying them.
Right? Like, this is trying. Like, go up.
They'll get there.
They'll get there.
We're learning about the water in these beds too.
Yes, the water that we're using, it's from a system called Garden in Minutes. They're custom size garden grids, and they put out a really hefty amount of water. It's a very full coverage that fills in each square here. So we're learning that we run them about 3 minutes a day, and that is more than enough to sustain them. When we first had them in there, I was running them for 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes later on in the day, not realizing.
And they were getting too much water.
Yeah, I was drenching these things.
So we're learning.
We're learning, but the system itself, really successful, and it's all hooked up to the smart timer. So far, so good there. In the 2x4s, we have the 26-inch Jardin bird cages.
Well, those are the 2x2s, Christopher.
2x2s. I cannot count. So the bird cages, I really like this in here for a little architectural moment. Last year we had an artichoke growing through it. It was really pretty. These are seascape strawberries. They're delicious. There was one over here I was planning on eating. Hopefully we get it before the bird does. And then we popped in some peppers. We have lettuce in here. Did great. We came back from the Cape. It had bolted, so we had to replace them with something fun. Here are the 2x4s, and these are identical plantings on both sides. They have the Space Saver trellis in them, which will pivot to 45 degrees if we wanted to do something like a cucumber and have them hang through. So that's fun. The black strawberry tomatoes, these are such a hit. They taste good. We actually had them in a salad just diced up. They don't really even need to be cooked. This is growing rogue. I'd like to tie this over here a little bit. Below that, you can see Besto Pesto, hot and heavy peppers that are finally starting to do some ripening. The mini eggplants. I was told the eggplants often look like the plant can look terrible, but they're still producing. Look at that. It's so cute.
They are cute. I wonder how big they're supposed to get.
I think they only get 3 inches long.
Oh, okay. Well, that one right there looks like it might be ready to harvest.
Yeah, this one I think needs to be harvested. And it was recommended to me that we grill them.
All right.
Because they're really tiny like
I'm
that.
up for grilling.
There's a flat leaf parsley and then oregano in here, which the oregano is really filled in. It's rooted itself all over the place. So big success here in the potager area in the raised beds this year. We're still learning. Every year it's going to get better. We're going to have all the harvest going on. So from over there, Eric, you can probably see some of the verbena that has reseeded itself. This was a big, thick clump of verbena seedlings along the base of the edging here. So we scooped them up, and that's where some of the other plants throughout the garden came from. They're right here behind another lark ascending rose. This is going to be a big plant.
Yeah, we just planted it this spring. It was a 1 gallon, if you can believe it.
And it's planted very deep. So the fact that it's already putting on such bulk and size is very promising for the future. Sprinter boxwood to begin this stretch of planting. These 3 plants here that are loaded with these little green berries, this is very heavy gold winterberry. This stand of perfect pale colors in the zinnia is Alpenglow. These were from the Floret Original sale that happened earlier this year. I, like so many people, clamored to get my hands on them.
It is pretty, and as these winter berries mature, they'll take up this space. But in the meantime, we're using it for annuals.
That's the point, to keep filling with annuals until your more permanent plantings take over. Another sprinter for some repetition. This is a trio of spilled wine Weigela. These don't get as tall, but they add a really nice weight to this section of the garden. Here on the Essex trellis, we have pink mink clematis. It did not look great its first year. It definitely fell into the, every time I plant a clematis, it takes a year for it to look good. But it puts out the sweetest little kind of baby pink flowers. And it was funny because it bloomed really heavily at the top. And then slowly it sent out more blooms towards the bottom. So it was fun to watch. There's some lemon jade sedum throughout this area. It has not traditionally done well for us because it was mowed down by bunnies. This year they seem to have left it alone. So ta-da, we're gonna have some.
Woohoo!
The big centerpiece of this spot is the Sugar Shack buttonbush, which did do its blooms. Here's its little, I don't even know how to describe those. They're so cool, the Sugar Shack buttonbush blooms, and then they'll turn into these little red berry looking things. Really glossy leaves. Come around here, Eric. I just have to move the crop coop. This crop coop was really helpful because this is where we planted the Eden corn seeds. They just were freed, and I kind of wiggled it in the ground so I knew exactly where the lines of the crop coop were. So I planted exactly inside the crop coop structure so they could get big enough to not get eaten by a rabbit when they were just seedlings. So they're a 75-day corn, so we might not be enjoying the taste of the corn, but we might be decorating with the corn stalks.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's okay. This is a little hedge of 4 of that Invincible lace hydrangea. You can see a bit better the kind of plummy tone in the pollinating florets, and then they have the little white sterile florets around the outside. This is an area we let the verbena really take over, which is perfect. It lifts the whole area. It complements so nicely the double majorette champagne hollyhock, which are at full height. That hollyhock won't get any taller than that, and it just has that nice clear champagne-y, a little apricot in the center bloom. Flavorette honey apricot rose. I think this might be your new favorite.
I love that rose so much. The color is amazing. I like the size of the blooms. Mm-hmm. I like the color. I like the texture of that shrub. I think it's great.
It's really nice. And you can eat it. It is a flavor. I'm not going to say that, you know, I'm like, yum, 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 and then I kind of spit it out. But it's really good. Here on both sides of this walkway, you can see we use the Sprinter boxwoods as kind of the entrance and exit. But again, it helps us transition towards new garden beds.
So coming this way, speaking of garden beds, this was planted in 2020, all of these things. So this right here is another hedge of Walker's Low catmint. Beyond that is the Ancient Mariner Rose, the David Austin Shrub Rose. Look at all that new growth on it. It's getting ready for another flush.
It's coming.
Stillwater's Clematis on this Essex obelisk. That is a gorgeous color. It's that icy bluish violet. Really, really nice. A big drift of reminiscent pink rose. Again, getting ready for that second flush. But there happens to be a bloom right here.
Ooh.
They are highly fragrant, quite delightful. And behind that, very eye-catching, very asked about during the garden tour this past weekend, the Quick Fire Fab hydrangea. So it's an improvement on the Quick Fire hydrangea. It's supposed to bloom even earlier. It's supposed to color up more intensely, and the flowers, enormous. I mean, these shrubs were 2 gallons when they were planted 2 years ago. And with the right pruning, they have just put on so much growth. I'm really, really happy with those.
And more to come, which really fascinates me.
This in front, Midnight Sun Weigela. What a cool color. I mean,
awesome.
Interesting. It's like a kaleidoscope of colors backed by the Lowscape Aronia. It has berries for the first time.
Yep, we've gotten to the berry stage.
So this was a fan favorite of the rabbits in the garden and the deer, and they would just constantly go after it. So we went ahead and took black chicken wire. I'm not sure if it shows up on the screen very well. But we took black chicken wire and wrapped it around it to protect it, which then got them through to grow. And then they were attacked by the Japanese beetles. But now they have some berries. I'm not sure if we're going to keep them or not. We're going to keep thinking about it. I know we say that every time. Behind that is Kelgayan Dahlia. These were sent to us by Darcy's Dahlias, so thank you, Darcy's Dahlias.
When we go around the other side, I think there's a bloom.
Oh, there is. You'll be able to see that. Eldorado grass, very nice, bright texture that pops up in there. Little tater tot arborvitae on the edge here, another evergreen to transition. Behind it are Steady Eddie viburnum. These are a double file viburnum that just bloom all season long. Ooh, Japanese beetles.
Get it.
So they have that disc-shaped bloom, and this is kind of what they look like all season. It doesn't really stop. Transitioning around the corner, we used sprinter boxwoods, underplanting this black gum tree. This will have beautiful fall foliage color. There are some Verbena bonariensis seedlings that are popping up there, and I love it. I am leaving them. Foxgloves we're letting go to seed. This was a peach variety, if I remember correctly.
Yes, Sutton's apricot I planted from seed 2 years ago. So all of these reseeded themselves last year.
And so they are, they are toxic, so things don't bother them, but we do want them to reseed. This is, in part one, we had talked about the totally tempted frosted violet Kufia. These are the totally tempted vivid violet Kufia. They are really a magnet for the hummingbirds. The hummingbird enjoys them a lot. I think the foliage on this is a little more attractive than on the frosted violet.
I agree. It's a little deeper.
But look behind it. We actually have roses in full bloom to share with you. Boscobel rose, David Austin rose. The fragrance is outstanding on this rose. I love the colors on this rose. It's peachy, it's pink. It's really delightful.
Very cool green in the leaf, too.
Yeah, like a bluey, icy green in the leaf. Really like that. And then there's that Kelgayan Dahlia.
It's gone over a little bit, but it's got a water lily appearance. That's what's always attracted me to it. So once some of these buds at the top go, I think it's really going to glow from behind.
This is a Jardin Tower obelisk. It's 8 feet tall and it's 30 inches wide, and it's perfect for this Sensation honeysuckle. This is last year's growth. You can see it is putting out new buds coming up. At the top, there's all fresh flowers. The hummingbirds have been on it all morning. And then once those flowers fade, they turn into these red berries. Walker's Low Catmint we're using here as a transition into this bed, which, Christopher, if you back up, is one of my favorite views. So as you walk up the east side and you come under that arch, you're going to see this right here. And what I love about it is it has the green of the sprinter boxwood, the chartreuse of the lemon coral sedum, the dark foliage of the spilled wine weigela, the nice green of the just dandy hinoki cypress, the yellow, beautiful, healthy foliage of the tottering by gently roses. Such a healthy, easy care rose. The bright, tall, airy, ethereal Verbena bonariensis. This drift of Let's Dance Skyview hydrangeas. This is a big leaf hydrangea that blooms on old and new wood. You can see all that new growth coming on. It's going to send out a whole nother set of blooms. This was covered in flowers. Unfortunately, the flowers did get burned in that heat dome that we have. So I deadheaded it. You don't have to deadhead it. Deadheading it is not going to make it bloom quicker or bloom more for its second round. It's only just for personal appearance. But Christopher, you can see right here, there are new flowers coming.
Oh, yes.
Definitely new flowers coming. And you can see the color difference in the new growth right here. A brighter green versus the more mature green. Rock and Play in the blue salvia right here. Covered in bees. And this dark color in the center is Midnight Masquerade penstemon. And last year, after they bloomed, we cut them back. And this year we did not. And I'm glad we didn't, because it adds that extra height and that darkness that I think is needed in this bed to give it a little bit of weight.
I agree. And it's almost an identical dark purple to the weigela here in the front.
More Verbena bonariensis carrying around. This is a hedge of sprinter boxwoods that leads up to the Monty blue spruce. This is an Isley introduction. It is that gorgeous, intense blue all season. It'll be even brighter in the winter, I've been told by Isley.
Ooh.
It'll brighten up even more in the wintertime. It'll get 8 feet tall by 4 feet wide. So in the meantime, while we're waiting, we have filled the space with annuals. More rock and play in the blue salvia. This is the back side of that Quickfire Fab hydrangea. So as you can see, as things mature, there won't be room for this salvia here anymore because these will get a little bit wider, Monty will get a little bit wider, and it'll all match up again. Here is a hedge of the Tough Stuff Top Fun hydrangea. This is a mountain hydrangea, a serrata hydrangea that blooms on old and new wood. You can see this is what the new buds look like. There's older flowers on this one. It's a very happy hydrangea. These are sterile florets to attract pollinators, but the actual pollen is right here where it's purple. As we're waiting for those to mature and fill space, we have planted a hedge of Supertunia Mini Vista plum vein. That's new for 2025, and it worked out really well because they turned out to be the same exact color almost as the Tough Stuff Top Fun hydrangeas.
Yeah, they're really pretty. Let's jump back over here. We have the tiniest panicle hydrangea you can get. This is Tiny Quickfire, and it puts out the sweetest tiny little panicles, unless you hit it with a hose early in the season and it only had one branch to do it on, and then it puts out a massive one panicle with its new growth around it. But I'm saying that grew really nicely considering we had given it quite the haircut accidentally. Behind that, on the larger size of this Jardin birdcage, we have Stand By Me Lavender Clematis. There are 5 of them here. They definitely need a little extra support, but in the last couple of years, they get thicker and thicker each year, and they do a very nice job. One of the best evergreens in the entire garden. This is the Japanese white pine, very irregular, variegation in the needles. This has a little touch of a twist, kind of a wave to each one of the needles. Adorable little pine cones on it. And it put on, I would say, about 6 to 8 inches of growth this year. So every year it's just gonna keep getting more and more shapely. Down here is a new for 2025 perennial called Webmaster Tradescantia. It's gone a little bit out of bloom right now, but it's a spiderwort, so it gets that kind of strappy, wild look to it. And I think as it thickens up in this area, it'll get a little more height as well and kind of balance against its friends here.
The pollinators love it when it's in full bloom.
Really do. I'm so excited about the dahlias. There are 29 of them here. They came from the Petite Fleurette seeds that I started early this season. There aren't 29 different varieties happening yet, but each one is so different and unique. And I love, oh, sorry, B, on this one in particular, there's orange and pink and almost a lavender in there too with this hot yellow center. And I like that there's just unique shapes happening on some of these blooms. This over here is so vivid, really fun. And we use the Jardin stakes to kind of make our own big trellis system. I wanted something, since our garden isn't a row garden, it's not a, this isn't set up to be, you know, what am I thinking of? A flower
like a
farm.
flower garden.
Yeah, but I wanted it to look like part of the garden, so we use these more decorative stakes, and it's been a success. I had a couple people ask what they were at the garden tour because they liked the idea of having a staking system that just fits with what you're doing.
Someone told me that they look like little Harry Potter wands.
Done. I love that forever. The Tickle Creek birch, which sounds like something from Harry Potter, it's a very finely cut leaf birch tree. And it's done very nicely in this spot. It's not going to get terribly tall or wide. It's just going to be a little accent in there. Coming around over here, we're repeating the Sprinter boxwoods the same way we did over under the black gum, under the prairie fire crabapple, which is producing its little crabs. So that's, they're doing it. And the birds really love those. This is a ruby ribbons grass, similar to the Cheyenne sky, but a little redder, which I thought would look very nice up against the Sugar Shack and also look really nice here next to Eustacia Vi. This David Austin rose, I'm so impressed with. This really struggled. We replanted it at the worst possible time of year. It was so hot last year. We put it in there. Over the winter, it died to the ground. But look at this great, healthy growth that it's put on. So that's definitely a winner. This is a truffle of pink Frina that we tossed in there, one of those last minute for the garden show.
And a tater tot arborvitae.
Oh, and the tater tot.
Little bunny.
Yep, next to the bunny. This over here is the
Illuminati
Tower mock orange, which bloomed so nicely for us, but it does have more of an upright habit, gets those really fragrant flowers. Next to the also very upright purple pillar rose of Sharon. We bought this as a 3-gallon, I think 2 years ago. The first year it didn't do the best. This year, oh my goodness,
it's really happy.
Really, really nice. And it's strong. For being so upright, I feel like when things go fast upright, they can be kind of weak, but this is holding its own. The last big feature on the ground here is Little Lime Punch hydrangea. These take a couple years to really get into their, get going, but they will be the most intense Hawaiian punch pink in a month or so. More of a compact habit. They'll get like 4 to 5, but they're just a compact, really flowerful plant.
They're like an improved version of Little Lime.
Yeah. Going upward is the Diana contorted larch. That has impressed me like none other of our trees. This has grown the fastest. It's healthy. It's interesting. It gives you winter interest from the contortion, but also just the fact that it's, I don't know, it's a great tree.
It's fun. I like it a lot. Look what is starting to bloom. This is our limelight hydrangea hedge. This was planted back in 2018. It's one of the first things we put in to help provide privacy between us and the neighbor. There are 15 limelight hydrangeas. They are planted 5 feet apart on center and 4 feet from the fence. They are happy and healthy, and they are starting to bloom. Look at the size of this hydrangea flower.
They're gorgeous.
Enormous. I love it. Every year they get bigger and bigger, more flowers. Such a dream come true for this hedge. Comes right around the corner to our Dry Creek riverbed with a little drift of at last roses, another drift of reminiscent crema roses, both highly fragrant, both prolific bloomers, growing up out of the center, gorgeous. I mean, if you could see what this tree looked like when we planted it, you'd be astounded at how it's grown in 5 years. This is a clump of river birch, underplanted with, is this Candy Crush hibiscus?
I just practiced. It's cherry chocolata.
Cherry chocolata hibiscus. So this is going to have like a red center with white, right?
Yes.
Pinkish white. And then a drift of tough stuff hydrangeas. These get more shade, so they didn't bloom as much as our other ones, but they are blooming purple, if you can believe it.
They're coming.
They are blooming purple. This little hibiscus in front at the very edge is Cookies and Cream. This is new for 2025. It's going to have that dark black foliage and bright white hibiscus blooms with a clear white center. So that's kind of what sets it apart. And all this little green growth you can see, that's all primrose. And primrose spreads like wild, and we love that about it. Some years it's more prolific than others. This year it happened to be really excited to bloom. Last year I don't think we really saw any primrose blooms.
No, I don't think we saw any flowers.
I think last year it was charging up for this year. So this is Siskiyou pink primrose foliage out of bloom, but it's a gorgeous flower. Before I keep going, Christopher, though, I want to stop and show the paper bark maple. Named paper bark for obvious reasons. Love that. Underplanted with some ageratum Christopher grew from seed, and some marigolds. I like that purple and yellow combo.
They're really nice. Actually, one of the sweetest people that we met at our garden tour said that this just felt like summer.
Yeah, like a happy smile, I heard someone say. More iris. These evergreens that are repeated across the entire back of the berm are green giant arborvitaes. Oh, I missed this grass. This is another Northwinds, right?
It is.
I really like the Northwind. It's really, really like, it's a statement, and it blows in the breeze so beautifully. This drift that looks like little shrubs, this is actually a perennial. This is Stormcloud Amsonia. It's a spring bloomer for us. It's gorgeous, and I love the foliage that it leaves behind for the rest of the season. Underplanted with some Supertunia saffron finch. This has been our sacrificial hedge for the rabbits. They've been nibbling on it all season. I'm okay with that because hopefully it's keeping them more out of the rest of our garden, although we do come across rabbits all the time. It's not lemonade lace, it's the other one. It's black lace elderberry. It's a proven winners. It's doing very well this year because we had discovered that a groundhog had been eating it. The groundhog then moved on from that to these little limes, and that got a chance to grow. This hedge, there's 5 of them here. You can see that these 3 are further ahead than those 2. That's because those 2 were involuntarily pruned by the hedgehog earlier in the season. But they'll catch up. Adagio grass, double blue chiffon rose of Sharon. Really, really pretty.
That's grown beautifully.
And there's even pollinators in it too. It's kind of, this is the area that gets a little bit squishy, but in a nice way. I really like it.
I do like it. It's everything's melding together.
This is opening day viburnum. It is, in the springtime, it is stunning. Christopher, look how much growth it's put on. These are where the blooms were in the spring. Those are faded blooms from the spring. It's put on like a foot of growth. The tag on this said it's supposed to get about 4 by 4.
This is already at minimum 6 foot wide, 8 feet tall.
So we're gonna have to do some pruning. This is a red obelisk beech. I love beech trees so much. I love the color of their bark, the texture of their bark, the shape of the leaves. I feel like they are, to me, they remind me of like a fairy tale tree from a kid's book when I was younger. I just love them in every shape, every form. Top favorite tree. Right here, Princeton Century Ginkgo. I love this tree. Very slow grower, but very cool bark. Again, underplanted with the ageratum and the marigolds. And that brings us almost to the end of the berm. A limelight prime in front, some serendipity alliums that we divided and transplanted. You will notice there's another boxwood here to help with the transition and provide winter interest. This grass, Christopher, is it the turkey foot grass?
It is turkey foot. It is Black Hawk's blue stem.
Black Hawk's blue stem.
And you'll notice it is a slightly more reddish color than the one under the red bud where it's not as much sun.
This is another rose of Sharon. This is, it's got a lot of Japanese beetles on it. This is double chiffon, right?
Orchid satin.
This is orchid satin rose of Sharon. With some more ageratum underneath it, some more lambs here that we had divided from the other bed, a sea spray juniper to add that evergreen interest, a hedge of the double take orange quince, which if you have the old-fashioned kind of quince, I really recommend giving the new quince a try. It's thornless. It doesn't spread. The blooms look like gorgeous roses in the spring. This one blooms a coral orange color. I truly do love it and think it's a great addition to the spring garden. Behind that, more river birch. There's a velvet cloak smoke bush that we'd coppice to the ground, which I really like the growth habit that it's taken on now. And this is all capped off with another green giant arborvitae. Thank you so much for joining us on our full July garden tour. Again, I'm Eric.
And I'm Christopher.
And we're Grow For Me Gardening.
Thanks for growing with us.